Hi everyone, my name is GFC_, and this is my speedrun of Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories any % no card duplication using RNG manipulation. Forbidden Memories, as you may already know, was developed prior to the card game being released. Because of this, it does not follow any complicated rule set you may associate with Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a relatively simple game of card war. Higher numbers win. Granted, there are many ways to get your number higher than your opponent's. I will briefly explain these gameplay strategies as they appear. Forbidden Memories has a history of speedrunning dating back to 2013. From 2013 all the way to the beginning of 2017, the strategies involved in the speedrun were mostly knowledge and decision making. No exploits, glitches, or manipulations were used. Because of this, the speedrun was always incredibly inconsistent and typically consisted of hours of farming an opponent in order to win better cards. These better cards were needed to overpower the end section of the game, but even then, there was always a good chance of losing due to things out of your control. This changed with the discovery of RNG manipulation, which was discovered in late 2016/early 2017. Most things in Forbidden Memories are decided by frames. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories runs at 60 frames every second. In the beginning of the game, the player is given a 40-card randomly generated deck. In order to start a run using RNG manipulation, you must get a very specific starting deck. This deck is determined by the frame you enter the run on, and by enter the run, I mean the frame you skip the final text box on the name entry screen. For this run, we aim to hit frame 706 or frame 711. Both frames contain the starter deck needed to continue the route. So, using various audio cues in the music, I skip the final text box at just the right time. I just check the cards contained in the deck before continuing just to make sure I hit one of the two frames. I know I succeeded by seeing 3 basic insects at the top of the deck. Now, I'm continuing with the campaign as normal. So as you can see, I had 3 basic insects at the top of the deck, which means the run can continue. This fight against Haishin is a small taste of how powerful the endgame duelists are. In order to move on in this game, you must lose this fight. In a speedrun, it becomes a race to lose as quickly as possible. It is possible to beat Haishin in campaign, but the game just makes you fight him over and over again until you lose. Now that I've lost the duel, I can continue through the story. The next segment of the game is the World Tournament. However, before the World Tournament begins, we will be using RNG manipulation to win extremely powerful cards. After you beat any duelist in campaign mode, or lose in Haishin 1's case, they are unlocked in a free duel mode. In this mode, you are allowed to duel anyone you've unlocked over and over again without fear of getting a game over. Every time you beat a duelist, you are given a card. Every duelist has a different pool of cards that they drop. Haishin 1, conveniently, drops the most powerful card you can win in the game, Meteor B Dragon. Meteor B Dragon, or MBD for short, is a card with 3,500 attack points. Winning it against Haishin 1, however, is incredibly difficult. For one, the card only drops on the ranks S or A, meaning you need to win handily, without any difficulty. As you saw, his cards are incredibly powerful for this section of the game. However, using RNG manipulation, we can make him play his weakest monsters and make us draw our strongest. Just like the starting deck manipulation I did earlier, this is determined by the frame you enter the duel on. So before I move on in the World Tournament, I will save the game and reset the console as you're seeing now. This resets the frame count back to 0. Next, I will use visual and audio cues and navigate to the free duel area, select Taishan 1, and start the duel at a very specific time. The plan is to win 3 MBDs or Meteor B dragons using this method. The first MBD, which I'm doing right now, requires hitting frames 468, 470, or 472. You know you succeeded by your starting hand. If the first card is Yamatano Dragon Scroll, you've hit one of the 3 frames. And it is. Now, I will complete the duel doing very specific actions in order to manipulate the card drop at the end of the duel to be Meteor B Dragon. A good way to think of these specific actions is to think of the duel as a performance. You've rehearsed all of the moves in practice, and you know that playing the duel in a certain way has dropped MBD in the past. So, if you redo that exact same duel where you won MBD, you'll win him again. This is what I'm doing here, replaying a previously rehearsed duel. What you're seeing here is called a 3D duel. When attacking a monster, pressing square instead of X or cross will result in the attack being played out in 3D. This action will alter the card drop at the end of the duel, hence why I'm doing so here. Depending on when you cancel out of the 3D duel will change the drop in different ways. I cancel out of the 3D duel in a very specific manner so that I edit the drop just the right amount so I can win Meteor B Dragon at the end. Now that I've won a single Meteor B Dragon, I can use him in the deck for the duels I'm about to do to win the second and third MBD. This changes the duels, obviously, meaning I need to enter the duels on slightly different frames in order to get the correct rehearsed duel. The frames I am now aiming for are 465, 467, 469, 471, 473, 475, and 477, or every odd frame between 465 and 477 for short. Entering the duel on any one of these 7 frames will work. I know I hit one of these frames by the MBD I just put in the deck being the last card in my opening hand. Now that I know I hit one of the correct frames, I can again play out my rehearsed moves to reach the rehearsed outcome, winning Meteor B Dragon. As you can see, MBD is the last card in my hand. This, along with some other qualifiers, tells me that I have hit the correct frame and can now continue the duel in order to win my second Meteor B Dragon. Now that I've obtained my second MBD, I will save the game and reset the console. If you recall, resetting the console resets the frame count back to 0, allowing me to perform this exact manipulation again. In Forbidden Memories, you can only have 3 of any individual card in your deck at one time. This is why we only get 3 MBDs in the run and don't continue doing the manipulation to get more. Again, by looking at my opening hand, I know for certain the final MBD manipulation was a success. I will now play the duel out exactly as I did the previous duel. If I was to fail one of these manipulations, it would not be that big of a deal. All I would have had to do is reset the console as soon as I see that the opening hand I got was not the opening hand I was going for, and try again. Now, with 3 extremely overpowered cards in my deck, I can continue the campaign as intended. You will notice I did not save the game. This is because my deck is simply overpowered for this section of the game, and, at least for now, I have just about no chances of losing. Next up is the World Tournament section of the game, which is broken up into 2 halves separated by a cutscene. I will take this opportunity to explain some of the game's mechanics as the duels play out. More RNG manipulation will not be used until the end section of the game. This is because of how overpowered our deck is currently. It would take more time to set up and perform manipulations against duels like this than it would to just duel them normally with your overpowered deck. There are certain duelists, however, near the middle section of the game who are very difficult to beat. Even with our overpowered deck, they can still be a problem. RNG manipulations are currently being worked on for these duelists, but at the time of this recording are not quite developed enough to be used in a run. As you can see, the attack I just carried out resulted in my MBD gaining 500 attack and defense points for the duration of the attack. This is because of a mechanic called Guardian Stars. Think of Guardian Stars as rock, paper, scissors, or as effective and super effective in Pokemon. Each monster has 2 Guardian Star options available to them. Certain Guardian Stars have advantages and disadvantages over others. In the case of the attack you just saw, my MBD was played in the Sun Guardian Star, while the monster I attacked, Clown Zombie, was placed in the Moon Guardian Star. Since Sun beats Moon, I gained 500 attack and defense points for the duration of the attack. This works both ways, however. Sun is weak towards Mercury. So, if I play my MBD in Sun, and I try to attack a monster that was played in Mercury, the monster in Mercury would gain 500 attack and defense points for the duration of the attack. It is worth noting that the AI will always select the first Guardian Star option available for every monster it plays. This convenient fact allows us as speedrunners to predict what monsters are being played just by seeing the Guardian Star. Now that you understand how Guardian Stars work, I can tell you that MBD is as good as it is not only because of its high base attack, but also because of it having the Sun Guardian Star. In the endgame, a lot of the most powerful monsters are played in the Moon Guardian Star, making our MBDs even more powerful towards them. One card that is played in the endgame in particular, called Gate Guardian, is very powerful. It has 3,750 attack points, which trumps our Meteor B Dragon's 3,500 attack points by 250. However, since its first Guardian Star is Moon, and since the AI will always play the first Guardian Star, we know that Gate Guardian will be played in Moon every time. Because of this, our MBD will always be stronger than a Gate Guardian. As long as we play our MBDs in Sun, it gains the 500 attack and defense buff, and goes to 4,000 attack every time it attacks a Gate Guardian. The next game mechanic I will explain is called Fusion. As many of you may know, a card called Polymerization was almost always needed in order to fuse 2 or more cards together. Since Forbidden Memories was developed before the card game, Polymerization is not needed to fuse cards. By pressing up on the D-pad, you can select the order in which you want to fuse your cards. If you select cards that don't fuse together, they're simply thrown out in the order you select them. If the cards you select do fuse, they will swirl together and you are given control of an entirely new, and most of the time more powerful, monster. Fusion is an incredibly important part of the speedrun. Even though we have 3 MBDs, which are incredibly powerful and require no fusions at all to use, we don't always draw them. In these cases, we must rely on fusing more powerful cards to overpower the opponent. For the most part, fusions are based off of card types in this game, rather than specific cards. For example, in order to fuse a B Dragon Jungle King, you can fuse any type of dragon monster, plus any type of plant monster. So, Yamatano Dragon Squirrel plus Dark Plant will yield a Black Dragon Jungle King. However, you can also do the same fusion with a Baby Dragon plus a Griggle. This illustrates the fact that fusions are based on card types rather than individual cards. I think of Forbidden Memories as another language, and like any language, there are many exceptions to the rules. There are indeed certain fusions that require 2 individual cards to work, but they're not relevant to the speedrun. The most relevant fusion in this speedrun is Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, or THTD for short. THTD can be made in many different ways, using many different types of common cards, and is quite powerful with 2,800 attack points. Because of this, it is easily the best fusion in the game when factoring in the ease of obtaining the materials to fuse it and its power. The 2 most important card types needed to fuse the Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon is, as you might expect, the Dragon type and the Thunder type. Before RNG manipulation existed, the entire speedrun hinged on Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. The entire run consisted of farming duelists to win Dragons and Thunders in order to make Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon as consistently as possible. While this is no longer the case, it is still a very useful fusion in the speedrun, so winning any Dragon or Thunder types from duelists and campaign in this run is still considered very good. Next, I will discuss Equip type cards. Equip cards are magic cards that can be used to make existing monsters even more powerful than their base attack and defense. A well-known example of an Equip card is Dragon Treasure. In this game, Dragon Treasure is an Equip card that is able to be used on any Dragon-type monster, and will power up its attack and defense points by 500 each. Almost every Equip in the game follows this exact same rule. Each works on a particular type of monster, and each powers up its own monster by 500 attack and defense. There are 2 exceptions to this rule. One of these exceptions is Bright Castle, which is an Equip card that works on all monsters in the game, but still only powers them up by 500 attack and defense. The second exception, and the best Equip card in the game by far, is called Megamorph, which is an Equip card that works on all monsters in the game and powers them up by 1000 attack and defense points. While equips are not of any importance in this particular speedrun as of right now, it is still a very important game mechanic that is worth noting while watching this. One other game mechanic that I feel is worth pointing out is the field card mechanic. There are certain magic cards called field magic cards, such as Umi or Mountain, and when played, they will power up a particular type of monster. For example, when using the Umi card, it changes the field to sea, and then any fish, aqua, or thunder monsters are instantly powered up by 500 attack and defense. There are many different types of field cards in this game, such as Mountain, which works on dragons and thunders and so on and so forth, and they will be relevant later in the game. Since there is no upcoming RNG manipulation for quite a while, and I've previously described all important game mechanics in order for you to understand this speedrun thoroughly, I will let the rest of the run speak for itself. Once I get to the end section of the game, I will continue commentary to explain the final 6 manipulation. I hope you enjoy the run up to them. Now that we have completed all mages, we can enter the final section of the game. This section is called the Final 6 because there are 6 difficult duels back to back without saves in between them. We will be using RNG manipulation to complete this section. Without getting into the minute specifics of how this manipulation works, I'm going to give you a good overview of Final 6 manipulation. First and foremost, in order for the manipulation to start correctly, my 3 MBDs need to be in slot 20, 21, and 22 when my deck is sorted alphabetically. Next, I reset the console in order to reset the frame count back to 0. If you recall, I was able to reset the console in between each attempt at RNG manipulation in the beginning of the game, which would set the frame count back to 0. This is no longer the case because there are no save points between any of the final 6 duels. This means I will need to make adjustments on the fly. So, using audio cues, I hit the manipulation against the first member of the final 6, Sebek. I know I hit this particular manipulation because I have 2 or more MBDs in the opening hand. Now that Sebek is beaten, you'll notice a small time passes before I move past this screen. This is because I must make several adjustments depending on the card that drops at the end of each duel in the final 6. Once I see what drop I get at the end of each duel on the final 6, I can determine what frame I'm on. Once I know what frame I'm currently on, I know exactly how many frames I need to go before I start the next duel. I can make certain adjustments to ensure I advance just the right amount of frames between the end of a duel and the start of the next duel. The idea is to continue doing this throughout the entire final 6 so that you get 100% confirmed wins. I will continue to use this strategy for the duration of the final 6. The manipulation against my current opponent, Dark Knight, is easily the most difficult and precise of the manipulations used in this final section of the game. Unfortunately, I failed the manipulation in this particular case. However, it's not that big of a deal at this point. The biggest hurdle of the final 6 was my previous opponent, Seto III. Since I was able to manipulate up to and including him, my odds are still quite good at winning the game, even without manipulation from this point on. The failure only means that Dark Knight and Nightmare, which are the last 2 fights of the game, must be fought and won with luck. Since the manipulation against Dark Knight has failed, this also means I cannot manipulate my final opponent, Nightmare. This is okay though, because like I said, as long as I'm past Seto III with manipulation, my odds are good. However, this is where all that game knowledge that I've accumulated over the past 3 to 4 years of speedrunning this game comes into play. RNG manipulation teaches you quite a bit about the game, but when you ran this game without RNG manipulation, and the entire run hinged on game knowledge and outplaying your opponent, you learned quite a bit. Luckily, these duels, although I got incredibly unlucky on this Dark Knight, as you can see with a 3900 Cosmo Queen that got Megamorphed, that's incredibly unlucky. I was able to outplay Dark Knight and Nightmare in this case, and I was able to win purely because of my game knowledge. This is something that new runners getting into only RNG manipulation might not be able to do because they don't experience it that often. My advice to anybody getting into RNG manipulation is to try speedrunning the game without it first. Although it's a complete RNG luck fest, you're going to learn so much more about the game so that when things like what's happening to me right now happen to you, you'll be prepared to take it on rather than just hoping that you draw your MBD and win. There are a lot of other ways to win without an MBD in this game, and I'm pretty much going to show you how to do that here. As you can see, I was able to maneuver my way into a win against both Dark Knight and Nightmare, ending my speedrun. The final time, though not shown in this video, was 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 36 seconds. I do indeed plan to continue grinding out this category to get a better time. My hope is that with this commentary, not only do people better understand RNG manipulation in Forbidden Memories, but they also get an idea of how far this game has come as a speedrun. In the Forbidden Memories speedruns of the past, the entire runs hinged on luck. If you got good luck, your run was good, provided you knew enough about the game, and if you got bad luck, your run was bad. With the RNG manipulation demonstrated in this speedrun, you can now get through the most difficult sections of the game using skill and good timing. This run, believe it or not, had relatively bad luck in most of the areas where luck is involved. However, the skill portions were nearly flawless, and because of that, I got a good time. This run shows that RNG manipulation in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories makes runs very consistent provided the player is skilled. I will be submitting this video to Awesome Games Done Quick 2018, and I hope the submissions committee can consider Forbidden Memories for its first Games Done Quick appearance. Again, my name is GFC_, and I hope you enjoyed my commentary. Take care.